Hi, I'm Nico. In this video, I want to show you one of the many ways that I use to write for percussion. I keep reading on various forums and groups about ready-made loops and if it's okay to use them. Well, of course it's okay. I mean, these loops exist for a reason, and if they serve your music, well, just use them, right? What I'm a bit less okay with is the argument that using loops is faster than writing your own lines. That I don't think so. Once you get the hang of it, you can be pretty fast writing your own stuff. If you are a proficient keyboard player, you can be even faster than using what I'm about to show you. But for the sake of argument, let's say that we want to program our own drum line. So program it as opposed to playing it in. So first things first. When thinking about percussion, I tend to see it as an orchestra within the orchestra. Like, really a little orchestra sitting in the middle of the larger orchestra. This is why I like to use the same part writing as I would with, say, strings or brass. Think of it as ACTB. You know, the soprano, alto, tenor, and bass. For example, this is how I set my percussion in a track. I have the lows, the mids, the high, and the metals. And I like, for a new melodic track, where I would tend to start with the bass, for writing percussion, I tend to start with the low percussion first. It's not always the case, but most of the time this is what I do. So let's do just that. And for those of you wondering, for this whole video, I'm going to use only one library. It's Damage 2 by Heaviocity. This is how it looks like. It's quite a popular percussion library, but really this works with any library that you may have, whether it's from Albion One or Los Angeles Modern Percussion, BBC Symphony Orchestra, Nucleus, whatever. All these percussions, they can always be divided into these low, mid, high, and metals groups. So this is what I've done here. And one thing I've done too, if you look at the mids here on the side, I tend to only have one percussive instrument per track, because then when mixing it, it will be much easier than having your whole percussion on one track only, because it could be doable. Look here, for example, you have in this one single patch, you have like the very low, you have the mids, and you have high percussion, right? But we will keep one track per instrument. So for example, the one I'm going to start with is this low war drums. I think it's on D. Yeah, it's this one. It's on D2. So let's do something with this. I will start by doing here 4 bars. I'm in a time subdivision of the time signature is 4x4, so it's very straightforward. And I said it was D2. Yeah, that's the one. So, for example, I could mark the beginning of each bar with a low hit. And that's it. That's all there is to it. It's not impressive at the moment, but yeah, this is how it sounds. Okay, you get the idea. This is very simple, but it's just to show you how I start and what I could do. For example, I could mark beat 1 and 3. So we'll just take it like this and do this. And why not mark more beats? And even more. Okay, you get the idea. So I've already prepared something. Here I did it on 8 bars because you will see it's a bit harder to add variations if you are only doing 4 bars of percussion. I like to work by 8 bars for that kind of tracks. And the reason is simple, is that usually I have a question on 4 bars and an answer on 4 bars. Right, so that's where we are now, but listen, it's very boring, and I guess you will directly know why this is boring. It's boring because every hit is coming at the same velocity. There is no variation whatsoever. So let's open the velocity. See, here they are at about 100, all of them. So what I could do, for example, is select beat 1 and 3 and add accents to them. When we hit a percussive instrument much stronger than the when we hit certain beats much stronger than the other ones, we call this accents. So I will select beat 1 and 3. I have a macro to do this. Don't ask me about it. I will make a video about macros in Cubase at some point, but this is not a Cubase focused video, so let's just know that I have a macro to select beat 1 and 3. And okay, so I've increased the velocity for beat 1 and 3, and let's see if it sounds already a bit better. Yes, it does. Bam, ba, 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 bam, ba, 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 bam, ba. Okay, but you know, it's still kind of boring and automatic, and it sounds like a machine. So what I could do now is, for example, do a little crescendo here. Why not? So, or a decrescendo. Let's just experiment with that, okay? It's already better. It's not excellent, of course. You have to experiment, and you know, you don't have to be an excellent drummer to understand that. You just have to figure out in your head what kind of beat you are going for. So, for example, here we have pa 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 pa, but I could have gone like pa 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 pa. You know, so just try to replicate what you have in your head using the velocities. And this is what I have done already. So let me show you the next example. And this is how this would sound. So look at the velocities while it's playing. And look where I decided to mark some accents. They are not always on the third beat, like here is not the case, here neither. Just listen. This is only one percussive instrument. It's always playing the same note, but the velocities are different, and it's making a world of difference. Okay, and this was just done with velocities. So just for comparison, look, Everything at the same velocity. Super boring. And back to what I programmed. Okay, and this very part here on the bass is usually what will take me the longest when writing a percussion line. When this is done, it's okay. I have my blueprint, I have my guideline for the rest of my percussion, and we will see that in a minute. But first, I want to show you how you can add even more interest to this line only. So let's move to the next example as soon as the Cubase autosave is done. Thank you. Look, here I've decided that on measures 1 and 3 in the question and measure 1 and 3 in the answer, I just added, you see, this tiny bit of variation here. It's not much, but again, it's making a massive difference to my low drum line. Listen. It starts to sound a bit more organic already. We are very far from the end result, right? But, you know, small steps. First, we tweak the velocity to select accents, and now we are introducing some tiny variations to it. Right, let's move on. A good thing to keep in mind when writing for percussion is to layer. And I mean layering a line with another. Layering a line, for example, in the lows with another line also in the lows. Of course, they don't have to compete with each other, they have to complement each other. And this is what I've done with this low bass blast. It sounds a bit lower than the lower drums. And let's have a look at it. You see here I have my, in the main line that I was writing before, I have my accents, and I've decided to mark some of them, not all of them, and sometimes not the accent with this low bass blast. So let's listen to it. Listen without, and I will mute and unmute it randomly so you can hear the difference. So first muted. See, it's subtle, but it adds something. And this is the whole thing about writing percussion. You add bit by bit stuff until it sounds good, right? So let's move on to the next part. We will look at the mids. And before, when I was telling you that this line here for the low drum is the one that takes me the longest, well, it's because then I like to write something, to program something based on this line. And this is what I have done for the toms here. So if we look at the toms, they are this D's on the A2 note. That's how they sound. To program it, what I've done initially is that I just copy pasted the low drum on the toms. You can see that I've expanded the dynamics here, so they hit really fast and really hard at 127, but they also hit very low, like this one. So it gives us a good variation, and just copy pasting it wouldn't have worked. So if you look carefully, I've on purpose some accent I didn't like here. For example, I didn't highlight this low accent, but I've put a stronger hit just before. And I don't do that everywhere, you know, it's just to add a little bit of variation. So let's listen to the toms on their own. So you see, it's really close than what I've done with the lows here. So let's have the lows playing with the toms. And again, same as before when I was talking about layering, I've also layered the toms with snares. And same as with the layer here, this low bass blast, if we open both in the same window, you can see that I didn't overdo it. I've simply highlighted some accents, some beats, but not all of them. And this is how my mids now sound. Okay, so let's try everything together. Okay, sounds good so far. But again, if you practice doing that, you can do this in 2 minutes. Yeah, sounds about right. So let's move on and look at the highs. For the highs, I've chosen to use the rims of taikos, and this is how a taiko rim sounds. Okay, it's really clicky. Just listen. It's nice, right? But again, nothing complicated. I duplicated one of these lines. I've changed some accents, added a bit of variations, and now this is how everything sounds together. I really like these taiko rims. They add this clack at on the top end of this percussion track. Let's move on and look at the metals, and as you've guessed it, it's more of the same. Problem with metals is that they tend to take a lot of space, and by a lot of space I mean the ear of your listener will tend to focus on the metals. So what I've done is, again, I've copied the bass line, but I've removed notes here and there. So just listen to these metal pipes alone. See, they take quite some space. And again, still for the layering part, I've used also this crowbar thing, but I've used only two to mark the beginning of the question and the beginning of the answer. So let's just listen to the metal with the crowbar. Whoops. Yeah, here. Okay, so again, nothing complicated. This is really quick. Let's try everything together. You see how simple this is? So don't go out and buy MIDI packs. You know, that's fucking stupid. Better take some time to just write a little line that you can then duplicate and tweak, and it will fit your music much better. You will also have the satisfaction knowing that you wrote it, not someone else, so it's your track, own it. Now, let's do a bit more tweaking. For example, here I am taking the snare, the damage library also has rolls. So this is the regular snare, but on the G sharp 3, they also have snare rolls like this. And they are controlled with the mod wheel. So I will move my mod wheel and you will hear. It's cool, right? So let me just solo this and listen to the snare alone, and you will see that at the end of the question we will have this little roll leading into the answer. See, that's it. It's really, really tiny. It's really quick to make. All I had to do was to take this G3 here, move it one semitone up to trigger the roll, and add this CC1 curve. I didn't even play it in, you know, I just used the curve tool here, and boom, I've drawn it. But again, it's a tiny change, but it makes a world of difference. You will see what happens when the whole cue is playing and we reach this little roll. It's really cool, right? You have this wah, and then the ping of the crowbar. Let's move on. I've added a little bit of lead in here at the beginning of my cue again. This is why you have to learn your libraries, know what they are capable of, right? Know if there are rolls, if the rolls are controlled with the mod wheel. I know that and I use that a lot, in Damage you can create a roll with absolutely anything because you have a part of the UI that lets you do it. I know that percussion library that I use a lot also is called Los Angeles Modern Percussion. And they also have a lot of rolls. They have swells and decrescendos and all that stuff. So I've just, added a little lead in. But again, it makes a huge difference. Took 3 seconds to do, but listen now. It's cool, right? You have the brrrr, and then the cue starts. Okay, we will take a look at mixing percussion, because this is also a question that I receive a lot. But before that, I want to show you a quick trick to make it even more organic. So now, if you look, for example, at this low part, so is the one we started with, you can see that everything is absolutely aligned on the grid. And this is what a machine would do. Of course, a really good drummer, and a lot of drummers in this case, they will be precise, but they are still humans, so they will not be machine precise. So what I like to do is to select all my hits except the first one for various reasons. One of them is that I want my cue to start right on the beat, but I select all the other ones and not the last one. I've added one here just to end the line. So I select them and I use another macro that I've made here. It will simply randomize these hits by 12 ticks. So I'm going to press on my quantize key, and you will see them moving, but just a little bit. See? Now, not all of them are perfectly aligned. So this is giving us a bit more human feel to this drum line. So let's just try it. You will see it's really subtle, but I will turn on the click. So by having the metronome, you will hear that they don't hit exactly on the beat all the time. So turning on the click, and let's play this. If I turn off the click, it's barely noticeable. I don't know for you, but I cannot notice it at all. I'm not that good of a drummer to say, oh, it's 12 tick too early on the on the click. But this is not the important part. The important part is what happens if I do that on each of these lines, and if they stop playing like a machine. So I will quickly do it because I haven't done it just yet. And while I'm doing it, I want to show you something. So see you in 15 seconds. All right, and we are back. So I've done this randomization trick. You can see, for example, if I open the toms, like here, they are not all exactly on the grid, and I've randomized all of them, and now this is how the cue sounds. And we will stop the programming there, and we will take a look at the mixing. But first, let's listen with this little variation. You will see it sounds a little bit more human. Okay, fine. So, the mixing part, because I don't know, people get crazy about mixing. 80% comes from the writing. If you try to layer, I don't know, 6 or 7 bass percussive instrument, it's going to sound like crap. There is nothing you can do about it. As Mike Verta says it, when it comes to mixing, shit in, shit out. So first, take care of your orchestration. Make something that makes sense. Don't don't have all the instrument occupy the full frequency spectrum. It's going to be unmixable. And typically, to mix something like this, what I would do is that I would mix each track individually, and this is why I've split the percussion on different tracks and didn't write everything inside one lane only. But this is not a mixing tutorial, it's just to answer a few questions that I get from time to time. So what I'm going to do is, here I'm just opening my drum bus. So if I play now, all of these tracks are summed into this percussion drum bus. So, first thing that I do when mixing percussion, and again, here I'm going to mix the bus only, not each track, and I'm going to mix them in the context of nothing. I mean, when you mix percussion with the orchestra, there are a lot more things that you need to pay attention to. But now, let's say that we are mixing this little orchestra within the orchestra, the percussion, the percussion section on its own, and there is no track playing on top of this. So, first thing I like to do is that I like to add a multiband compressor, and for that I will use Pro MB. Any kind of multiband compressor would work. There is one that comes with Cubase that is really good. I know that Logic has one. Use the one you are familiar with and the one that you actually have. So don't go out and buy all the FabFilter thing, it's not needed. And usually I like to start with a preset because, multiband compression, this is not what I'm the best at. But for example, here, if I look at drums, they have several presets to start with. There is one that is called Punch It. So let's try this Punch It. It's not very impressive for a multiband compression. Maybe I can use something else. Punch, wide, low. Okay, let's see how this sounds. So first I bypass it, so we don't hear what it's doing, and then I will activate it. Okay, I see what it is doing, and I'm not a fan of it. Usually, what I like to use is, if I go to this mix bus here in Pro MB, there is punch and leveling, and I like to mix into that. So this is why it is the first plugin that I'm adding on my drum bus. And here again, I will play it and bypass it from time to time so you can really hear the difference. So you can hear that it's definitely punchier, and it's leveling the curve. It's trying to flatten it a bit more. Look here in the visual EQ, you will see when I turn it off, it's less flat and it makes, yeah, like a hill. Okay, so yeah, I like to mix into this multiband compression. Don't add it at the end, it's not going to sound good. You want all the processing that you are going to do, you want to do it in the context of this multiband compression. So before the multiband compression, especially, I want this track to hit, you know, to be massively loud and to bring the roof down. So I'm going to compress it even more, but this time not multiband compression. I'm using a regular compressor here. It's a LA3A emulation. It's a really fast compressor. Again, you don't need it. You can use any kind of compressor. Just tweak your attack and release time. Here it's a fixed one. I can just go and tweak the peak reduction. Because we go into a multiband compressor, I don't want to compress it too much either. I will try to aim for around 3 dB of peak reduction. So let's try this. So let's try without. Here you can see the bypass button, and with. Yeah, it's punchier, I like that. Okay, then let's start at the beginning, as again I'm going to mix into the compression, so I will add the plugins before the compression. I will start with a regular EQ and let's see what is happening. I don't know if you've seen, but here we have a peak. Again, I didn't do this with my ear, I did this with my eyes. Look, we will have a peak here, and I will actually bump it so you can hear it. If I isolate it, it's not a really pleasant sound, but it doesn't happen all the time. So what I'm going to do, instead of just turning this frequency down, I will just make it dynamic. Okay, and now it's already easier on the ear. The other problem that I hear in this track is that there is a lot of rumble in the low end, in the mid lows to lows, and this is, yeah, this I think we can clean up, and we can clean it up on the bus directly. I'm guessing it's coming from one of these two, but anyway, let's try to do that here. So again, I will just sweep and try to find it. Here, let me make it a bit wider. You hear the ooh. Let me isolate it a bit. Yeah, so you see, this is taking a lot of space, and we don't need that. It's like if you are putting a lid on top of your monitors. So we will just create a little deep, not so little actually, maybe around 6. Let's just try it. And honestly, as far as the EQ is concerned, this is the only thing I would do to the bus. The rest would need EQ on the individual track. But again, I will turn it on and off so you can hear the difference. Really pay attention to this low rumble when I have it off. You see how clearer it sounds? Again, this is nothing complicated. We've been very quick about this. Next thing that I could do is add some saturation, and I like to use Decapitator for that, and for the drums I put it on E, and I will just increase the drive until I am satisfied. Okay, there it's distorting a bit, I don't want that either, so let's just turn it off. Okay, it's a bit aggressive, so let's just tweak the output, just lowering the volume a bit. And also, I will keep some of the original signal, not a lot, just 10%, so let's try that, and again on and off. Yeah, you hear without the decapitator it sounds a bit sterile, right? And as soon as I turn it on, you will see, as soon as I turn it on, it sounds warm and gritty, and this is the way I want this line to sound. Cool. And we are more or less done. I could add maybe a little bit more compression, upward and downward compression through the free OTT plugin. So you can have a look at my settings, upwards and downwards at 100%. And the time is at the maximum value. And what I will just do is increase the depth. First, I will overdo it so you can hear what it is doing to the sound. So you see, whoa. I really want to emphasize the clack like a whip in the highs, but not too much either. So let's do that. Yeah, that's cool. And here we are. We did this little drum line. So typically, if you would use a loop The loop would not be exactly tailored to your track, except if you are starting with a loop and writing your track over the loop. Finding the good loop when you have dozens or hundreds of them is time consuming, it's boring, and after a while they all sound the same and you don't really know which one is the best and the one you want. And on the other hand, just writing this took a few minutes, so the time that you would spend searching for a loop, and then you have to adapt it. See, for example, here, just at the end, I've added this single hit. This is something that you cannot do with the loop or the lead-in with the snare. So again, writing your own is more flexible, and I do not believe that it takes more time. Now, if you are playing in each part on your own, you can be even faster than that. You will most likely not need to humanize it. So yeah, percussion is daunting at the beginning, and this is why many people also tend to use loops. It's because they don't know how to write for percussion, which is fine, but just experiment a little. You see what we did here, it's not rocket science. It's for sure less complicated than writing a piano track, for example. So don't be afraid. Just launch a percussion patch and try to experiment. With that said, you should definitely stop watching videos and go write some great music.